Okay, so I'm going to attempt to answer a difficult question. On the face of it, it looks quite difficult. Creating the most satisfying audience experience requires a skillful combination of narrative and production techniques. But we'll just see how we'll attack it. So what we want to do is look at the keywords and phrases. So keywords and phrases in that complicated statement are the most satisfying audience experience. So Coppola is creating something that we find satisfying, and probably it could be enjoyable, I suppose, but mainly for us, for the purposes of our essay, we want to be talking about how Coppola communicates his themes, so we understand them more fully. So that suits us because that's what we've been practicing. Obviously, it's skillful combination. So how does he combine the two? And then the narrative and production techniques. We have to talk about both of those things. So I need an angle, and I'm going to agree with it. It's always easier to agree. It's really hard to disagree. Some people try to be really clever and disagree with a statement, but you can get yourself into trouble there. Anyway, I agree. The most satisfying audience experience in film is when we have a combination of excellent storytelling, so that's the idea of narrative, supported by a director's mastery of production techniques. Coppola engages us with a simple human story, Michael's fall from grace, so I've talked about, the moral corruption, but uses the magic of film to help enrich our understanding of the themes. I guess that's pretty straightforward. So really what I'm going to do is give the whole narrative of Michael's moral corruption and talk about how that's supported by Coppola's film techniques. It's quite simple, really. So things to discuss. So at the start, I would describe how Michael is introduced in the film and his isolation from the family, and his moral positioning, because Coppola uses this costume choice and use that language. It is a choice by Coppola of costume. So he comes dressed in this light-coloured Marines uniform. He's just been in the war. He was a war hero. He's legitimate. He's legal. And he stands out from all these men wearing black suits. The choice of uniform for gangsters. So also his conversation with Kay. So that's created by Coppola, and it's a production technique. It's the script. When he goes on to say, that's my family, Kay, not me. And then his loyalty and bravery at the hospital. That's just building the narrative, the story of Michael. If we move on a bit, obviously the next thing to talk about is the restaurant. That's really straightforward. And the main thing is this, his use of sound. That's a production technique. So the story, the narrative is being moved on because we know that Michael is having this inner turmoil. It's the moment where fate takes over, or he makes a decision to go to murder these two men, and it is the beginning of his moral corruption. So that's an easy thing to talk about, that artificially loud sound of the train. And then we go on to say these production techniques support the narrative techniques to provide an extremely satisfying audience experience. We start to grasp the significance of Michael's moral corruption. So you have to keep coming back to that first part up there. Anyway, we'd move on, and obviously we'd discuss the baptism scene, and then all the cross-cutting and the crescendo organ music, just to emphasise Michael's lying, all of that stuff. And then also Michael's lying to Kay. So obviously we've got to link it to the deeper meanings of the theme. So is Coppola saying that we all have to fight against the moral corruption we all carry inside of us? Yes. So Michael is shown as the most moral character at the start of the film, and the most evil by the end. He damns his soul when he lies to the priest and church. Does his descent into moral corruption show that anyone can commit evil given the right circumstances? So that's one of the things to talk about, that we all have this and we all have to fight against it. And Michael was shown as a decent man at the start. And also, is Coppola saying something as simple as power corrupts? So we've talked about that in the class. And of course you have to go back to the question and say how Coppola's use of this man's story, which is the narrative, and the production techniques give us a much fuller understanding of this idea of moral corruption. Okay, well that's how I would attack that. That's that'd be a fairly good question. It doesn't look so easy on the face of it, but really if you look at it that way, it's a pretty basic one to do.